Well, welcome back, or welcome for the first time to our little podcast endeavor here. I guess for quick, brief little reintroductions, my name's Travis.
My name's Kurt.
And today's episode is going to be semi piggybacking off of what we were talking about in the first one at times, but then also just in and of itself, kind of its own topic. And it's, you know, uh, to what extent is free speech free? And by that, and I've talked about a little bit about this with Kurt, is that at what point are you either not allowed, or it is heavily um, dissuade or discouraged um, thinking for yourself, or being able to share your thoughts and opinions without fear of backlash or ousting from even social circles in general, simply for what you think or what your opinions are on
Yep.
things. Um, and Kurt and I did a little bit of talking while we're at work because that's essentially
do.
all we do.
Yeah.
And what we kind of talked about in the consensus that we had come to, as well as some others, is that I mean, this show is gonna kind of be about that, but then also it's a big part of this show is you know talking about things that uh, seem to either alienate certain people that either don't want to talk about them, or B, find those topics very interesting, or just already have a predetermined narrative
Right.
that they will never divert from. Uh, and I think that's dangerous. I think that's very scary. You can get into some very scary places by everybody getting into one ideological hive mind. If everybody thinks the same way, and there's nothing couldn't be possibly better, couldn't be possibly worse, we have the best thing. That can get a little scary.
That's very scary, and I think it must be making you scared because you're sweating like crazy
Am I?
right now.
I'm panicking. I'm freaking the fuck out.
I know it's warm in
It's
here.
probably-
You should have shed some.
I'll shed some
Shed some
layers.
clothes,
I'll shed
bud.
some layers
Yeah.
at 5.
Yeah.
But it's but yeah. Yeah, I'm just freaking
I can
out.
tell you're warm.
I'm
You know, you
freaking
got
out.
a beanie on and
Freaking out. Well,
5 layers on
here's what's
inside.
about to happen.
Come on.
If I take this beanie off, it's gonna look like I'm a mad scientist.
Yeah.
Do you hear me about the free speech?
Yeah. Yeah. See, at least we can say it for now.
Yes. Well, yeah, and that is another thing. Well, and that was kind of something that
What's this spot?
it is this. What is this spot? This spot is, I have no clue. This spot can be one of three things. It can be either from A, the place we work, B, like a food stain, or C, makeup.
Makeup.
Daisy wears this sweatshirt quite a bit.
Oh, so she
And-
just,
Well, I say it might be either that or like.
I bet it's work.
It's probably.
Yeah, it's
work.
got to be work.
I mean,
you leaned up against
It
something.
looks like
yeah.
dust or
Yeah, yeah.
cloud or something.
Anyways, whatever. It
Anyway.
doesn't matter.
What we were kind of initially talking about, and then also with this platform and this podcast, it's having the openness and the willingness to discuss certain either quote unquote taboo or
Right.
Anxiety inducing conversations for some individuals.
So the way we talked about it was things you don't talk about at the dinner table or at a dinner party.
Mhm.
You called it dinner party taboo, and I thought it was fantastic.
I think
because
that's
it actually made
it's
sense.
a good. I think it's a good analogy for it, because it the things that we talk about, I think, are they're, and we've talked about this before as well, is that it's topics ranging from the culture to the philosophical to the political to the sports. It's everything.
Yeah, it is
It
everything.
all
Music.
everything.
Yep, everything.
It encompasses it all. And one for me, why it does for me, is that it all comes back to a cultural aspect that is
Right.
important for me. I think a lot of things are downstream from culture.
I agree.
So culture influences and affects a lot of things. But if the culture gets built up to a point where it's that person disagrees, or that person does not have the exact same worldview as I do, down to a T with my narrative, then whatever he's saying is either misinformation, disinformation, or just downright propaganda or
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
And I don't think that's true, and I think that's scary. I think it leads to some very dark places
Yeah.
when it, you just start to go, I don't like what X says, even if it has merit, and even if a vast amount of people agree with it, especially in this country, and that's what I think a lot of people, especially in coastal America, kind of forgets about center of the country, is that there is a differing in opinion because
Absolutely.
there's a different way of life. And it's not a differing of opinion to the point where we have to secede and be two different nations. It's just the idea that we live different lives in different parts of the country. But if you have coastal elites, which is a term a lot of conservatives use, but then also just high influence, high power people telling you how you need to live your life, or the way you think is wrong or backwards, or you're clinging to some bitter ideology or something. I think that's dangerous because if you're saying that about somebody else and you don't even really know those people,
Mhm.
I don't think it speaks very highly of your mode of thinking. If you just think, oh, somebody disagrees with me, so they must be backwards or stupid
Right.
or something. I don't think that's healthy.
No.
I think that can lead down a very dark road.
And that's kind of where we're trying to go at with this show is we want to be able to talk about things that people are afraid to talk about.
Yes.
With their family, friends. And, we want to engage in conversation, not just between you and I, because we do this all day long,
Well, I was gonna say,
but with you. So, we want you to chime in, and eventually I would love to have the call-in line,
or a
and get
call
that
in
going,
line, or
just
get some
stuff on social
here,
media. Yeah,
or
we'll have
social
guests.
media.
I already have guests lined up.
Yeah, it's
But-
it's little things like that, and it's in something that I am gonna try and put forth on this platform is that I know, and I hope that I am not always right, because I know that's not the case.
Yeah. I'll tell you when you're wrong.
Exactly.
I'm-
I know you will. I know you will, and that's perfectly fine.
Or at least I think you're wrong.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I also want people listening in or
Yeah.
watching to do the same thing, and I don't, because I'm a big anti-echo chamber guy. I don't like that.
Yep.
I don't like when people just go into a room and start telling one another what we want to hear, rather, as opposed to what we need to hear.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be a political bias statement, but I think the right does that better than the political left. I think the political right has echo chambers, but at least pundits and commentators on the right will go, hey, this may not be information we want to hear right now, but it's what it is.
Right.
And maybe we do something about it, maybe we don't. But I think you have to be able to, at the very least, take in that information.
Right. And I agree with that. So going on to our first, topic of conversation, a little bit of backstory about us. I feel like maybe we should talk about how we were brought up and how this played out in our families. Like, so for you, with your family, were you able to, and are you still able to sit down and talk about, maybe you have differences of opinion. Are you still able to sit down and talk about those things without having what feels like a WWE?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
you know,
literal SmackDown Raw
in
spectacle
the living room or in the dining room.
I mean, 100%, especially with my my at home in house, my direct family, my immediate family. Absolutely. They were the people that influenced me to act that way, and instilled into me that is a healthy and beneficial way of interacting with the world around you. My parents very much instilled into me very early on, that I was not always going to be right, and that people were going to differ in certain views than I do, just on certain things, because that's what people do. But what makes America so great, and also just people unique in general, is that you can sit down, hash out a conversation with somebody, and talk about either the logistical side of it, the fact-based argument side of it, as and getting away from emotions and rising emotional tension-based argument. My family very much instilled that into me, by them themselves, especially my mom, being very intellectually open, not as much so as just deep diving into philosophical topics at every
Yeah.
family dinner, but the idea that you can come to them and ask them about any topic, may be awkward, and it may be at times weird or taboo.
But they wanted that. It's not like they were like, so it was welcomed.
It
then,
was
is what you're
welcome.
saying.
They never dissuaded my mom. Like, I'm gonna be repeating myself a lot with a statement like that. My mom, especially, because she very much instilled that into me, and especially through her, it was, if I had a question about anything, come and ask her. She's my mom. She's a parent, so she's
Yeah.
gonna be able to answer that question. And then I took that, asking questions and thinking for myself and discerning information. I got that from her and also from my dad, and just took it out into the world around me and into the real world. And that's how I look at certain topics. I know that there are not, especially with a show like this, I don't know if I've ever, and maybe scratched on it with you before. Some of these things people just don't like talking about. It's not that they're either, some people are weirded out. Some people are like, it's just an awkward
No,
conversation.
I
don't-
completely agree. Yeah, some people are just
some
like,
people are just, I don't
wanna
want to
about
talk
that.
about it. And Daisy can be like that at times when she's more or less being the third, the bird's eye view. the
Daisy
third-
is for the viewers.
Daisy is
anyways.
my girlfriend, and she is, I mean, she's amazing. But
She is.
we're on very similar planes when it comes to the way our thought processes are and the way that we perceive the world. But we absolutely differ on opinions at times. It's a good thing. It's healthy. You're never going to be 100% the same as somebody. And her family life was much different than mine was with my family. And she talks about that with me extensively. She just wasn't as...
Which, side note, real quick, I would love to have her on because I would love
Yeah.
to actually talk to her and get,
she would absolutely love...
I know she
would
and I
absolutely
think
love coming on here.
hearing from what you've talked about her family life and where she comes from, I would absolutely love to have her on here. to talk
Yes,
about her.
I mean, and I think she would love to come on at some
Daisy,
point.
you're going to come on the
That's
show.
yeah, it's gonna happen, Daisy. I'm sorry, it's gonna happen. You're gonna come on here,
Anyways,
but that is where my openness stems from. It's definitely from my family. And when I say openness, I mean my willingness to discuss topics and things that are either a niche or a taboo or make people feel awkward. And then I guess going back to what I was initially saying before I got pulled away, there are some people that just don't like having these conversations. And that's fine. I can understand if those people don't want to have those conversations. But if you're in an environment where people then do want to have that conversation, I would say don't complain, or maybe just leave the room. Or just maybe understand that maybe you're not a part of this particular discussion. Because I think there are conversations that could be beneficial and healthy to have.
Agreed.
With family members especially, but then also just friends.
I think more friends, because family usually understands and realizes who you are before, and then your friends, they can be hard-headed. They can be quite a bit different than you, but those conversations are good. I feel like it's going to help grow your friendship in the end, or it might do the opposite, and maybe that's not the type of person you want to be around, and you don't want them in your life.
100%.
No problem.
No problem. I have freedom. You have freedom of association.
Freedom of association, and I completely agree with that.
If simply,
I've cut out so many people from my life, and did it for a reason, because I didn't see it eye to eye on a lot of things.
And it was, if that is something...
Is that the alcohol getting to you, or like...
No, probably. I burp a lot.
Oh, you're good.
But that is a common thing, I would say, with freedom of association, is that if it does get to a point where you guys just differ on opinion or viewpoint so much that you can't hang out, just don't. It's okay.
Just don't.
Because, I mean, there are more people at this point. If you disagree with me so much, there are going to be more people that you can openly talk to and agree with more than me, and we're just going to get angry at each other.
I agree, man.
And there are people like that you almost can't have a discussion with. I get myself into that bout sometimes too, and it's come up at work before. It's like I just get passionate about a topic.
You are very passionate.
And then sometimes emotions rise to the surface even after that passion.
Damn feelings.
Yeah, and those feelings, but feelings are strong.
Yeah.
They're I don't think feelings and emotional based arguments have merit, but they have like weight people respond to that.
Mhm.
I think more often than not, if especially if it's a woman that then goes, I feel X. It's like, okay, yes, I can't deny what you do or do not feel.
Yeah.
Statistically, though, or factually, what actually is it?
Yeah.
Or what is going on? What is, is something actually holding you back? Or is that mindset in and of yourself holding you back? It's these kind of things. But there is a lot to learn and discern about the world around you and the world in which you live in, from disagreeing or
Right.
even just hearing out what your friends have to say or family, even if they just fundamentally disagree with you.
Yep.
And it's important. You
Yep.
need to be able to.
It
do
is
that.
important. I agree. I'm glad that you actually had the ability to be able to talk about things with your family, because I come from a completely different background than you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I grew up in a religious household, and I remember at our family gatherings, nothing was brought up. We played cards, and we that's what we did. We just ate and played cards, and then
Mm-hmm.
they would fight about playing cards, but never ever was I ever comfortable with ever bringing up any sort of conversation about sex.
I mean,
That is a
I mean,
real big
I was gonna say, I'm
thing.
sure, especially in a very religious
Yeah,
community, I'm sure.
sex is taboo. You want to talk about taboo? We just didn't. I was very confused, growing up, because I didn't know anything about it. I learned everything that I knew from other kids in the congregation,
Mm-hmm.
who didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
They learned it from for other kids that they talked to,
Yeah.
and
Who knew nothing?
who knew nothing about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So I was very just like, and I wish growing up that I would have been able to have, an open conversation
Mm-hmm.
with one of my parents. Don't care which one. But it just was always awkward, and it wasn't just sex; it was everything. Um, we didn't even talk about politics. There were no politics.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't vote. You stayed out of everything. Politics were non-existent in our household, because it doesn't matter. It's not God's law. So
It's the law of man.
there's a law of man, right? Which are put there by God, but
Yes.
yeah. Anyways, so I didn't have the ability to speak with my family members about any of that, and I feel like it was kind of tough. Like even if we had disagreements, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like fine, but I didn't have any sort of conversations outside of religion.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all it was everything was based off of that. And granted, my childhood was great. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. My parents were amazing, and they instilled in me, and religion also instilled in me a lot of beneficial values and mores that yeah, absolutely. I mean, I believe in right and wrong, and I can tell what is right and wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and what you should and shouldn't do, and I believe in being a good human being, and I can't say that for a lot of people anymore,
No,
in
you
this
really
world.
can't.
So yeah, but I'm glad you were able to do that, and I think more families should be that way.
Well, I 100% agree.
Nowadays,
Especially now,
yes.
you have to. I mean, and I can't speak as a parent, but from my experience with my parents, and then also my friends' parents as well. If you were to be, shut up, Bixby. If you were to be raising kids in this day and age, or trying to
It's a sponsor, by the way.
bring up a family, yeah,
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
It's everything is very fast. Technology, pop culture. I mean, it kind of just it is synonymous with pop culture, but the next thing, the new thing, it's constant. It's every other day now, and kids grow up incredibly fast now.
Very fast.
They learn
Too fast.
way too fast, and I know people that would say exactly that. That was internet and social media and things like that. Put in me a belief that I needed to grow up or act more adult quicker than I actually was, or that I knew more than I actually ever did, simply
exactly.
because I could, at the touch of my fingertips, figure something out, even if it wasn't 100% the truth. And I think that is very common in this day and age, especially with younger younger adults, either kids just going into high school or even still in high school, especially middle schoolers, you just get exposed to a lot in the cultural sphere and
Yeah.
very early, and not through like a slow, for lack of a better word, healthy amount or exposure
Right.
over time through your family. And then, but your family sitting you down, maybe not sitting you down and giving you a birds and the bees talk or something. That's not exactly what I'm getting at. It's, hey, the world is really fast now. And especially now that the world is all online, everyone around you is going to want to go online. So you're just going to get drawn into it and you're going to try and do it. But it's dangerous.
It is
It's
dangerous.
very dangerous, and you can learn some things that you shouldn't necessarily know too much about at this age, or learn something completely incorrect from the get-go. And it's very dangerous for young kids. But kind of going back to what you were saying about how with your family it was, we played cards and we didn't argue or talk about anything.
No, they argued about cards.
Just the
though.
cards. Yeah, well, exactly.
Only certain members.
Yeah, for sure.
They took it serious.
Yeah.
We played
but-
some hearts, and people.
Oh,
loved
I mean,
their
people go
hearts,
crazy on hearts. Same way, it's,
My sister's gonna watch this and be like, "Yeah,
yeah.
I can name names." Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
my family was always that way too, especially outside of the house. It wasn't necessarily that we would sit down and immediately jump into the conversation. I should preface it that way. It wasn't that we would just sit down, immediately throw on your thinking
Right.
cap and, start getting philosophical. It was more or less, we're going to sit down and have a good time. But if one of these topics gets brought up, we're going to have an
Yeah.
open-ended, honest
yep.
discussion about it. And we're not going to browbeat one another. And I'm not going to take your opinion, your view, your statement as some sort of character or direct line assault on me or my personage. I'm just not going to do that because I try not to do that with
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah,
And I
you
don't think
shouldn't.
people do
Yeah.
that to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess tying it back into what we were talking about in
Yeah.
the beginning of the episode is, at what point does that thought process of just being able to have an open-ended intellectual discussion, which I would deem free speech, that is
Yeah,
free speech.
that
That's what
is.
free speech is to me, and I'm a big free speech guy. To what extent and at what point does free speech stop being free?
Right.
And to me, I think it's a couple things. When it starts to get to a point where that newspaper can't post this because I don't like it or it cuts against my narrative.
Right.
That's dissemination of information and quashing free speech.
Right.
Just because you don't like the information
Right.
in the piece
Right.
doesn't mean it's misinformation or disinformation.
So that leads us into what we were going to talk about towards the end of the episode. So,
Yes,
yeah.
it very much does. And because there are parts of the world where people can't openly state their
yeah.
opinion or
Yeah.
or their viewpoint.
Journalists are
Journalists especially in countries that aren't America, not Western countries especially, they have a lot of laws and strict rules against journalists in news and information gathering. And
Yeah.
one such place
We can bring it
is
up right
the
now.
is the good old, there it is, the Chinese communist dictatorship. I hope they come after me for saying that.
Oh, I went too far. There
No,
we go.
that's fine.
I just want to
And-
get the car out of there.
Well,
Get
say
the car.
get your
All
damn
right.
cars out of here. So this is an article in the Guardian. This came out on, it says right there, on December 10th of this year. And it is about a citizen journalist in Wuhan. I believe her name is Zhang Jian. I think that's how you pronounce that. Zhang
Yeah,
Jian.
close enough.
Um,
Zhang Zhang.
Zhang Jian.
Yeah.
And she, says right there, she's a 37-year-old former lawyer, but she was a citizen journalist who was gathering information and doing reporting in Wuhan during the early stages of the coronavirus pandemic. And she was doing investigative journalism on the fact that Chinese authorities were kind of initially semi covering this up, and information wasn't coming out as fast as it needed to be. And then I think she also she either herself or definitely had ties to some Hong Kong pro-democracy people, which the Chinese Communist Party definitely does not like. But this article here, no. But the article here, I guess I'll just start reading
just
it.
read it. Yeah.
A citizen journalist detained for more than 6 months after reporting on the Wuhan coronavirus outbreak has had a feeding tube forcibly inserted and her arms restrained to stop her pulling it out, her lawyer has claimed. Zhang Zhan, a 37-year-old former lawyer, has been on a hunger strike at a detention facility near Shanghai. Zhang was arrested in May and accused of, quote, picking quarrels and stirring up trouble, end quote. K. An accusation frequently used against critics and activists inside China. That's pretty much why I said K. After reporting on social media and streaming accounts. Last month, she was formally indicted on charges of spreading false information. In a blog post on Wednesday, Zhang's lawyer, Zhang Keke, said he visited his client on Tuesday afternoon and found her unwell and exhausted. Quote, she was wearing thick pajamas with a girdle around the waist, her left hand pinned in front and right hand pinned behind, end quote, he wrote. She said she had had a stomach tube inserted recently, and because she wanted to pull it out, she was restrained. Zhang Kek said she was in, quote, constant torment from 24 hours a day of restraints and needed assistance to go to the bathroom. In addition to headache, dizziness, and stomach pain, there was also pain in her mouth and throat. She said this may be inflammation due to the insertion of a gastric tube. I'll just kind of cut off there because this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
this is absurd to me.
Come on.
I don't understand this at
well,
all.
and hold on. This right here is what I want to. She's among several Chinese journalists who have been arrested this year after traveling to Wuhan to report on the outbreak. Oh no, we can't report about the outbreak.
You can't.
And the response.
No, why would we want to do that? Why would
because
we
the truth would come out, and that's bad.
That you let a virus slowly leak out of one of the mainland epicenters of your country, and you did nothing about it simply because global chaos. I digress. Anyway, this is what I was kind of getting at.
No, so there's one more sentence that I want to read. It's right here. Just read this.
The Chinese government's crackdown on activists, dissidents, and human rights works appears to have worsened this year. You can tell
as if it wasn't bad before.
Right.
You're telling me
my
is that all we're reading on this article?
That's going to be pretty much all I'm reading. My right side bias is going to pop. It's going to pop out here. Perceived.
Yeah.
Perceived?
Yeah.
They have been
consistently,
not just journalists within their own country, not just Chinese journalists on work visas for American papers.
Yeah. They don't want them coming in.
They don't want them coming in there. They don't want them coming in there and learning about the fact that they're actually trading in high-value information with our country.
Yeah.
Well, our high-value information. And then also, going back to what I was saying earlier, they want the ideological hive mind.
Yep,
they want this same thing.
They want everybody to
think the same. They want everybody to think the same way.
How many people are in China?
I don't know.
It's over a billion.
It's over a billion.
Yeah.
So, it is over a billion.
So try and get a billion. That's an eighth of the population of the world.
Oh, and easily, those
get them all to think the same.
We'll get them all to think the same. That's a very dangerous people. But then also, the amount of work that it takes. It's not just education, it's re-education. And that scares people like me who are history people, because there have been a lot of people that have used re-education camps a lot throughout history, and it's not a good thing because it usually just instills a dogmatic worldview that just blocks you off to any other sort of way of life other than the one you're living, and that's very, very scary. And
so that's a topic for another
100%.
Sticking to this as far as the free speech and the
free speech, but that is quashing information.
Yeah,
that is quashing a citizen journalist doing what your state-sanctioned news media over in communist China would not cover. Because the Chinese Communist Party is afraid of that information getting out because it actually drains and gets rid of the facade that China is actually a decent actor on the world stage, and they're not. They are not at all. the fact that you have to jail one of your citizens simply because they are gathering information that you're upset that they found out, and then you're restraining their arms because they don't want a gastric tube shoved down their throat. You lost me.
I feel like
you
this
lost
is
me.
this is small on the scale of a lot of things that China's doing. I mean, we could get into
There's a lot.
organ harvesting and things like
Well,
that. I
organ
mean,
harvesting, or I was just reading an article a
but
couple
that's
days.
not really. I'm not talking about this episode. We were trying to stick to the
No,
whole
but
when is free
but
speech.
even then, in this article that I was kind of bring off the top of my head, kind of pertains to that. It was an article talking about how Uyghur Muslims are persecuted in China. That's a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simply because of their
And it's been going on for a long
while.
time. Yep.
Same with Christians.
Yep.
And it's because of their religious beliefs. And for some reason, people just want to overlook that. It just zips by for whatever
we don't
reason.
care about
No, it's because we make a lot of money from them. Well,
Yeah.
and they make a lot of money off us.
Exactly.
But what happened, and there's videos that have come out of China showing just train loads of Uyghur Muslims being sent to re-education camps. Where have we seen this before? I don't know. Maybe a couple of other places. And they are using them for forced labor. They're into forced labor, and they're picking cotton. They're forcing them to pick cotton.
Yep.
China produces 20 to 30% of the world's cotton. Most of it is forced labor, tainted cotton.
Absolutely.
That's the term that I heard it described as, was tainted cotton. And that all stemmed from people being simply persecuted from their beliefs and what they thought, and simply how they viewed the world around them. A state power came in and said, you can't think that way.
Right.
That's not cool.
We're going to get into that more in a different episode.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
But that's what I'm going back to with free speech, and also being open.
Yeah, because if they were open to free speech, then none of this would even
if you were open to free
on.
speech and okay with people having dissenting worldviews,
be whatever religion you want.
Yes, that's what's great about America. There's no established religion.
Well, right now, but
no, I mean there will never be. Well, I guess are you think right now as far that's one of the great things. I've heard people describe it as the American experiment. At this point, it's an established test. The American test has been established, and we've done a lot of great things.
We have,
and there are a lot of things that stay in our history, and nobody denies that. I think that's the pin that you usually have to put in that, is that nobody said we didn't do bad things.
Oh, we did terrible.
We've done terrible things. End of discussion. Well, it's not end of discussion. We've done terrible things. Overcoming,
but we've
grown over those terrible things.
Learned from
one of those things is allowing people with differing viewpoints and opinions that are of not my own to share their views and to say what they think. And you have. I think, therefore I am. You have to think. You have to think,
right?
And you have to put it out there, and you have to be unafraid of sharing your opinion. I understand being afraid of the backlash, or being fearful of some emotions-based argument coming out of your opinion.
But I still feel like if you want to do it, you should be able to say whatever the heck you want to say.
Yes, and you have the right to do
that.
When
it comes down to, I feel like over the years, we have been able to do that. Over the last 4 years, maybe even more.
Especially over 4.
Yeah, especially over 4. But censorship is alive, and censorship is alive and well.
100%.
Everybody knows this. You can read it. I mean, there's a reason why Facebook, Google, Twitter are all being called in front of Congress.
There's a reason these people are being thrown up to the hill.
Because they are censoring people, and that is terrible.
They're using their...
cannot do that to influence. They're using it to influence elections, more than elections, I feel like, just everything.
They're influencing a way of thought. They're shaping an ideology.
Right.
And that's not good. When these platforms, that's a big part of it. They're a platform. And we have laws garnering platforms versus publishers. What platforms can do is say, I allow information to go up on my site. I can at least flag it or control a comment section and not allow some vile spewage to be on there. But I am not responsible for what gets put on it because it's a platform, YouTube, or a phone service, what you talk about on the phone. The phone company cannot be held liable. When you start, like Jack Dorsey and his Twitter cronies
Oh
have
my
started
gosh,
doing.
Jack Dorsey.
Yeah. Where you just start
That's why I
flagging.
don't have Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good reasons to not have Twitter, Curve. That's a tangent.
Yeah, I know.
But they start flagging posts. That's what they do now. They flag posts as far as this is misinformation, or this claim about X has been debated or is contested. From my personal experience, and it might also be just who I follow on Twitter. It definitely is people on the right side of the aisle that are only getting these asterisks next to their name, or these little information blips. And I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good at all.
It's not.
Just to simply, I think it's because I kind of here. Let me look here because I had it
Yeah, you did write something down.
I had it wrote down in kind of 3 steps here. Yes. And so when I was talking to you about it at work, I was talking about the Overton window. And the Overton window is essentially, it's a theoretical point, but it is a theoretical window in which the topics and things that are allowed to discuss within social circumstances, they fit in this window, the Overton window. Over time, we began to see that window shrinking and shrinking closed. I think simply because people are just afraid to hear opposing viewpoints, and that scares people and makes people have to think. I don't really know why people are scared.
Yeah, you go back into the always thinking. It's always critically thinking.
It is I am a critical, and that's what I talked on the first one. I think I can get why that phrase can be or whatever, but it is a thing, and it's a beneficial thing, and because thinking, and that's why we even started doing this, and this is why we talk at work, and we've talked about this before. Thinking by yourself is very difficult because it's like having a conversation in your own brain, because you have to have more than just one person. You can't just create a straw man and make an argument against that, because that's not effective. So yeah, if the Overton window is shrinking, and more things are becoming taboo and awkward to talk about, and we're scared that even somebody would even remotely utter the name Donald Trump at our family dinner because we're afraid of what's going to happen after that. How far off are you from that Overton window being small? How far off are you from being that completely closed, and we have to all think the exact same? And the term I used with you earlier today was an Orwellian term. It's same thing. How far off are you from that, where it's just complete intellectual takeover? And the reason we brought up that China article was because that's what's going on. That's what's happening within.
So I feel like it depends on where you are at in the country, or in the world.
In the world, especially your geopolitical position in the world.
So I think in the United States, we still have, it's shrinking for sure. Over the past several years, it's been shrinking. I feel like, and I have not been involved in this for as long as you. So, but I can tell. Not this election, but the election before, I didn't even vote, but I was very curious into what was going on, and I stayed up all night watching that election. For what reason?
Was it 2016?
Yeah, 2016.
I remember
because I felt like I already felt before that election that things were changing drastically. And I noticed it. I never noticed it before because I didn't really care.
Well, I was gonna say I had noticed. Granted, I grew up in a household where my dad was a Republican. He was a conservative, and he would always kind of give me the Republican or conservative side of the argument. I vaguely remember the 2008 election, and that's very kind of hazy. I just remember being in elementary school. I remember the 2012 election a lot more clearly. I was in middle school at the time, and I remember a lot of classmates walking around with Obama Biden stuff, and people making fun of Mitt Romney and all this stuff, which Mitt Romney, the most milquetoast human being, he's going to be the guy that you make fun of, and I digress. But I noticed noticed it even then.
Speaking of
I noticed it even then, though, that there was at that time, it was a social change. Every Americans had it in their brain, at least from my young person's perspective, and then also now my hindsight perspective, and also kind of what I've garnered from talking to people, is that we were going to have a black president.
Yeah.
Well, we had a black president for first term, and we were about to elect him for a second term. And because we were either going to do that or had done that, we had washed away any sin or wrongdoing that had ever happened in America. Simultaneously, while that was happening, Barack Obama would go up on podium and on mic and would say, yeah, we're doing great, and this change thing is awesome. By the way, the other 50% of the country that didn't vote for me are clinging to God's gun and xenophobia. That was dangerous. I noticed it even then.
No, I agree. It started a very big divide.
It was.
Even though a lot of those people probably voted for Obama.
Obama won a landslide both times. He won a vast majority of the popular vote. He had a large black turnout because he was a black man, obviously. But then also from my opinion, from my perspective, he had put forth this belief and this idea, and everybody kind of resonated with it, was that we could almost wash away America's sins by electing a black guy as president. I have no problem with that. That has nothing. The color of his skin does not matter to me. It was the fact that he belittled half of the country. He talked down to half the country, and he completely lied about what his opposition believed and about things that he was doing. He completely overstepped his executive bounds. These are the problems that people have with Barack Obama, not the fact that he was a black guy. Nobody cares.
No, I didn't care.
Nobody cares. No. I thought it was cool that we had a black guy as president.
I thought he spoke whenever he gave speeches, he was very. He was good. Like
he's
he was
an
fun to, he was
he's
fun
an
to look
educated
at.
man. He was an educated man. He knew how to speak.
I could also tell that just
he was double speaking. He double speaked the entire time.
He was very conniving.
Ben Shapiro says it very well. And I know people have gripes with Ben Shapiro. That's another point. Ben Shapiro said it very well. I have never met somebody or heard somebody speak who could hype up the Constitution so well, but then double speak and
just take
an SHIT on it consistently. And he did it regularly. And that's why a lot of middle of America voters were not big fans of Barack Obama. And it wasn't because of the color of his skin. It was because what he instilled into a body politic that made them think that the people that didn't vote for me didn't vote for me because they were racist, and because that is half the country is still racist, and there's systemic racism.
So we'll leave it at this. It's this will lead into another topic of discussion. So
I guess
who built the cages?
Who built the cages?
Who built the cages?
Who built the cages, Joe? And so that is and this would be just kind of another topic for another episode, but I can almost just segue into that next episode. Is that there was an article that I was reading. It was an interview with Barack Obama not too long ago. I don't know if it was when he was, I don't think he was doing a Breakfast Club interview. I think it was a different one. But he's doing the interview. I wish I could have the exact wordage because it escapes me, but essentially goes along the lines of something like this. It is Barack Obama bad-mouthing the Trump administration for not getting things done, and being, I think, kind of the verbiage that was used was being supportive of families, or trying to, encourage some kind of reform of some kind to get families together when you're literally locking children up in cages at the border. And it's that. It's the gaslighting. Barack Obama was King Gaslight. President Gaslight. He was President Gaslight. And that's why people were not fans of him. When you go on mic and then blame somebody else for the things that you made, people notice that.
They do.
People don't get memory hold. I will promise you, I will not be memory hold. I've seen too many people have it happen to them. I've seen where that goes. And that is why you can't just quash my information. You can't stop me from seeing what I want to see. I need to be able to take in all forms of information.
And that brings it back to the whole topic of tonight's conversation.
Yes. At what point is free speech no longer free? And for me, it is when if
you're inciting violence.
If you're inciting violence, if you're actively calling for the assault or attacking of other individuals, that is inherently wrong. And we have negative rights. My rights only go as far as before they infringe upon yours. That's what it is. So when does free speech cease to become free, it is when you're inciting violence or calling for destruction of some group of people, or when you are quashing the dissemination of information that does not immediately align with your worldview narrative or just the way you perceive the world, or it's information that you just simply don't like and therefore are not going to let it be shown.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. That's not how America works. America allows you to take it all in and think for yourself.
Right.
If you come to the conclusion that everybody's kind of stupid and I got what I needed from it, and now I'm just going to think about what I think about it, welcome to probably 75% of America.
A lot of America.
Because most Americans, from my experience, don't care in depth about most topics. They have an opinion about something, but when it gets down to all the way down to the very bottom, they really don't care.
No,
they will say their opinion, but they also are going, I also don't have the answer. I don't have the answer either. Unfortunately, I wish I had the answer to a lot of the world's problems, but I don't. But I think a big solution and something that helps us falling more and more into chaos is allowing us to speak our mind.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And that's why we do this.
That is why we do this.
So
it's one of the main reasons.
That's why Travis and I started this, because we wanted to speak our minds. We do it all day at work, and we want to engage with other people that want to speak their minds, or they feel like are afraid to do that at home, at work, with their friends, family, whatever. You can speak it with us.
And that's a key part of it.
Yeah,
is that I wanted a communication element.
With the community.
And it's commune. I don't like communism. I don't like it. Sorry if that offends people, but like a community around the idea of honest, ethical discussion.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be an intellectual. I'm not an intellectual. I'm
not either.
I was going to say, and I don't want to be. I think there's once again, I keep doing that.
Don't care how smart you are. I don't care.
I just
if you have PhDs and exactly.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Or I don't care if you're just some person that didn't even graduate high school. It does not matter to me. If you have a voice and you want to talk about it, let's talk about it.
You're unique. You have everybody's got a different way of viewing the world. I would like to at least hear your 2 cents. I'd like to hear what you say. If I agree with it, I agree with it. If I don't, I don't. But either way, we come to the conclusion of now I know. I learned something from you that I probably couldn't have garnered from any other person or any other experience. And that's what I go for. I go for a unique conversation, or to just, I think it's a quote from Jordan Peterson. It's treat every person you talk to as if they know something that you don't. And so something at least at the very bottom of maybe your discussion, they throw something on you that you had never thought about before.
And that's great.
Important.
That is important.
That is important. And that's why I am pro free speech. And I think.
And that's why we're also going to bring some people on that, like I've told you, that are going to have similar views, and then there are also going to be some dissenting views, and that's what we want. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll get a lot more people engaged.
It will get a lot more people engaged.
So we need to.
We probably should be wrapping it up, but that was this was a good one. It was probably it's probably a little jumbled, and it was probably a little chaotic at times.
But that's kind of how we are.
Also, that's what I was just about to say. That's how we are, and that's how my brain works.
I know some people aren't going to like the chaotic part of it, but you know what? That's us.
That's us. But some people do like that. Some people like I understand,
we go off on our little tantrums,
tangents and tantrums, but then they get brought back to a main point. Granted, we will. Mr. Incredible or Mrs. Incredible rather.
But,
sorry,
as we continue to go on with this, we'll have more. We'll get more in depth, and we'll get more.
We'll flush it out to a T a bit more. But I like the natural rhythm of what this is. Because
we talked for 45 minutes right now.
And
I could do this all night long, honestly, with you, Travis.
Sometimes you got to.
Daisy might be like,
what's going on? But then also,
he's cheating on me. I know.
It's exactly the joke she made last time.
She's finding you on Find My Friends.
She's snap mapping me right now. She's just zooming in. Where's this son of a bitch? But so I guess the overall end point of this episode was to just highlight and emphasize. Well, one for me, and then also for us, the importance of free speech, and the willingness to share your opinion, your views, and your thought process, even at times when you fear somebody's gonna
Right.
give you some backlash for it.
If you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about
Don't
it.
talk about
But if
it.
you really want to talk about it, do it. I mean, honestly,
Talk to me about
yeah,
it.
you can talk to me about it too.
Because I like talking. I'm usually the one at the party that's off of the couch in the corner
Yeah.
by himself.
Yeah, me too.
With the drink. So if you just want to stop by and just start talking about
Come on
something,
by.
then come on by. I'll just be sitting there with a drink, and I'll chat your ear off.
All right, Travis. Well, I know I said that last time, but this was a good episode,
This was a good episode.
and I feel like we still want some feedback from people.
Definitely.
So,
And you know,
Let us know what you think. If it was something you would like to tune into, or what you would like to hear more about, and
or if you I mean, you know, obviously it's a big ass, or if there's something that I or Kurt said that made
Yeah.
you either view something in a different
Absolutely.
light,
Yeah,
or
there we go.
that made you think even completely
or
different.
if it offended you,
Yeah,
or
honestly,
it didn't offend you, let us know.
if something offended you, actually tell me.
Yeah, because I'm curious.
I'd be curious to see that, because I don't think a single thing I said was offensive. And if it,
but to someone, it could be.
but and it's something that we've talked about
Yeah.
before too. In order to think, you have to risk being offensive,
Right, exactly.
Because anybody can be offended by anything. So yes,
Yep.
feedback. Please
Feedback.
give me feedback. Us feedback.
Yep.
Me.
Yeah, well, us feedback.
And yeah, thank you for listening.
Cheers,
And,
Travis.
Cheers, Kurt.
And we will see you on the next one, everyone.
See you on the next one.